Good morning, everybody. Madam Clerk, are we ready to begin?
Yes, we are.
All right. Good morning and welcome to the March 19th meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission. At this time, we will call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Neoma Jordan,
Here.
Ed Lawson,
Here.
Vaughn Hartung,
Here.
Oscar Delgado,
Here.
Bill Thomas,
Here.
Adam Spear,
Here.
Christina Swallow,
Here.
and Bob Lucy is absent today. And
Fantastic.
we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hartung, will you put your flag background up for us?
Give me a second here, Madam Chair, and I will.
Thank you very much. And if Brian Stewart wants to take his mute off, we will have Mr. Brian Stewart lead us in the pledge.
There you have it.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag,
United States of America,
and to the republic
which stands one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate that. At this time, I believe we're going to move into public comment, but I also believe we might have a change to the agenda. Director Thomas.
Yes, Madam Chair, if we could, after approval of the agenda and the consent item actions, would you please, I'd like the board to consider moving item 6.1, which is the legislative report from Michael Hillerby, up before the other items.
Okay. All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, at this time, we will move into general public comment.
Okay, there are two general comments. John Locke emailed on March 10th at 8:25 p.m. He said he is sorry to see Keola's manager, Abdullah Salman, go, but he was not surprised. And the second one is from Jeff Church, emailed on March 15th at 6:02 p.m. that he urges the public board meetings to start up again. We told him they should be beginning in April 16th. And he would like the RTC to consider a Reno, Washoe, Carson trolley and a trolley incline. He also suggested considering capping the RTC 5 indexing, and he opposes SB 191, creating a massive tax on electric vehicles. And those comments were emailed to the commissioners last evening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We are all in receipt of those public comments. I do think it's time to note that for the public's information that we will begin in-person meetings at our April 16 meeting with public comment, of course, barring any COVID modifications that may occur between now and then. So we will be back with our traditional RTC in-person meetings with all of the protocols as it relates to public comment and restrictions as outlined by the governor in capacity restrictions, spacing, masks, all of that will be in place. So I'm excited. We're all going to get to see each other in person next month. All right. We have a modification to the agenda to move up item 6.1 to right after consent. May I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved as amended.
That was in stereo. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to consent items. Do any members have any items they wish to pull for discussion? Okay, seeing none, may I get a motion?
So moved, Hartung.
Motion and a second by Commissioner Lawson. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. All right, we will now move into item 6.1. Mr. Hillerby, you're up.
Good morning. Thank you very much. It's good to be with all of you virtually. Look forward to seeing everybody in person. We are marching along through the legislative session, the strangest I've seen in 30 years. And the legislative staff has done an able job of providing infrastructure like you do with your own meetings, Zoom calls, opportunities to meet with legislators remotely as well. I will say it really makes for a difficult session to be able to have the normal give and take, despite the easy access to those hearings and being able to watch them remotely and phone in 2 minutes of support or opposition testimony, absent question and answers, just doesn't get the same kind of information out and engage people in the same way. So it has been a much more challenging session from that perspective. We're watching a number of bills for you, as always, and working with the staff who does a great job of helping to answer questions and understand some of these policies. We'll just talk about a couple of those in particular, because you have some information in your packet and some letters about one of those. Want to thank Director Swallow and Senator Rosenberg for their help with the bill. I'm just pulling the number up. It's AB 54, I think. Yeah, AB 54. Which would create a traffic safety committee within NDOT. They have been very good to work with ourselves and RTC Southern Nevada about making sure that we have representation. So there's an amendment coming. That bill will be up for work session next week. And again, I want to thank them for hearing from us and, as always, being good partners and welcoming us in as partners in those discussions as well. And the other big one, and again, I'm happy to answer questions about other things that might be on your mind or on your list, but is AJR 6. AJR 6 is the proposed constitutional amendment that would change the allowable uses of the highway fund to include operation and add the words transportation and transportation infrastructure, the idea of being able to use that for transit. It has generated a fair amount of interest from folks. And again, you have some letters from AGC and ACEC in your meeting packet. The bill was scheduled to back up. So the normal course for a proposed constitutional amendment done by joint resolution of the legislature is it must pass 2 consecutive legislative sessions in exactly the same form and then would go to the voters. So in normal course, that would be to be considered and passed by the legislature this year, 2021, again in 2023, to the voters in 2024. The only potential change in that was something that started this summer during the special sessions. There are 3 different joint resolutions that to address how the state taxes mining. Those need to pass twice and then go to the voters. Because they pass those during the summer special sessions, the idea is if they pass 1 or more of those in this regular session, that would qualify for that to go to the next ballot. I am sure that will be the subject of some conversations in front of judges before all that is over on an issue as contentious as that. But just want to point out there is that potential change in the normal timing that remains to be seen. But typically it would be 2 consecutive regular sessions and then go to the voters. Because the language, it's really just a very few simple words there. The real, where the rubber meets the road, as they say in this business, would be in the 2025 session, 4 years from now, where you would see potential legislation directing how that money would be spent, how much. And that's where we would expect to see some battles between advocates who would prefer to see that, as you heard from AGC and ACEC, used for the traditional purposes of road construction and maintenance, those that would like to see more of that used for transit. So in terms of sort of where the battle lines would be drawn and when, it really is further away. That bill was scheduled to be heard yesterday. It was pulled from the agenda. I have a meeting later today with the chair of Growth and Infrastructure, Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno, to visit with her. I think the general sense from our conversations and talking with folks in the building, it's got some challenges. One of those is obviously making changes to the allowable uses of the highway fund is playing only with the existing pie that's not generating any more revenue. And that's the major concern, is do you water that down in a time, as you all know as well as any, and Director Swallow on her board, we're having increased road miles traveled and decreased fuel because we have more efficient vehicles, more alternative fuel vehicles, and general CAFE standards and things that have changed the gas tax. And we've not raised that in a long time. So that is of serious concern. And interestingly, the AJR 6 came out of the interim study, this last interim from Senate Concurrent Resolution 3, that was designed to have a recommendation to the legislature about how to deal with electric vehicle funding to help pay into the highway fund. I think it's easy now in hindsight to say it was probably a strategic mistake to separate the two issues, to not bring forward a proposal on how to have electric vehicle and other alternative fuel vehicles pay a proportionate share into the highway fund, and also bring AJR 6, which changes the allowable uses. So if you want to, expand the use of the pie, you probably need to expand the pie as well to stretch that analogy a little too far. So I think that was a bit of a strategic mistake, perhaps, to do that. And the other question for AJR 6 is, was anybody really going to spend money and fund that constitutional question? Was anybody going to step up with a lot of money? Because even questions that have support and not a lot of opposition fail, as we saw in the last election. Voters have a lot to do. When there's confusion about what a question does, the default normally with a lot of voters is to vote no. So who was prepared to fund that? Don't know. But based on the letters, and I cannot speak for them and haven't asked, I want to be clear about that, from AGC, ACEC, others, some concerns expressed by the building trades who normally work with the contractors that build our projects. I think you could have safely predict there would be a fair amount of opposition and some funding against a question like that. So I don't know that there's a path forward for that this legislature. We've got a ways to go yet, but we'll keep an eye on it and update you on that. But I'll stop there and see if there are questions, and hopefully that provides a decent overview of where we are, particularly on that bill.
Thank you very much. And if commissioners have questions or comments, please just raise your hand to the screen. I'm not seeing anybody. Director Swallow, good morning.
Good morning. Just a note, we're also tracking AJR 6 closely. The addition of the word operations was something that we did add when they noted that they were looking at opening it up. And so we did add operations. As you know, much of the work that we're starting to do in this space is operating the system that we have and operating it more effectively and efficiently. So we did that. We're also supportive of the concept of being able to use the revenue, even on our existing network, to do more supportive things regarding transit and or bike ped. So just broadening the use a little bit. The current language is more broad than I think we were anticipating. And as Mr. Hillaby said, even the piece about the transit, which we're supportive of in concept, we are concerned about when it comes to not growing the pie. I do know that the thought was the timeline to get the approval to even grow the pie, or get the approval to even spend the money, is longer than perhaps the process to grow the pie. Parallel to this, as you know, there is that other initiative that we're working on with the MPOs, or that we worked on with the MPOs during the interim, where we would do a study to look at the funding options to really increase the pie overall. And we're already laying the groundwork on that, doing the background research, so that should that bill come through, we will be ready to roll and really get the project done in the time frame we have, which is just the one biennium. The other piece of that is we are actively continuing to look at and be supportive of finding means to better fund urban transit. That is something that we will look at as part of that other study bill. And some of those may be able to be supported without a constitutional amendment. So that is something we're looking at. So if the constitutional amendment doesn't come through, how else might we fund urban transit? And the last thing is, if the study bill doesn't make it through, we are still planning on continuing our effort. It may just look differently because we know we have to figure out this funding puzzle. So just two pieces on that.
Thank you very much. And thanks for all of your work on this. It's difficult issues that are no fun for anybody to have to kind of figure out, but certainly imperative for our future road and transit.
And I probably should just note, so everybody understands how small the pie is. If you haven't heard me talking about it, we have an annual shortfall that's the equivalent of our capital program. So it's about $530 million annually. That is, so it's not, we're not short just by 10%. We're significantly short, which is why we do need to figure this out.
Very good. Okay. Do any other commissioners have any questions or comments of Director Swallow or Mr. Hillaby at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I don't believe we needed a motion. This is informational only. So thank you very much, Mr. Hillaby.
Thank you.
We will move back to item 5, Metropolitan Planning Organization, public hearing items. Director Thomas.
Thank you, Chair Jordan. So Deputy Director Amy Cummings is going to be making the presentation on this item for the conclusion of what has been presented to you at many meetings over the past several months. Certainly, this should not be unfamiliar to you, but there are some updates and modifications as a result of the public process. So, Amy, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you so much. Amy Cummings with RTC. And again, we very much appreciate the board's participation and input through the last year and a half of developing this plan. And the Regional Transportation Plan is a pivotal document for us as a metropolitan planning organization, and it's required by the federal government so that we are eligible to use federal funds in our region. So today, I wanted to have a brief recap on the outreach that we did throughout the life of this process. We are very appreciative of the input from each of the jurisdictions as the elected officials as well as staff. We've been in front of the city councils and the county commissions twice, and staff have participated with us on our various advisory committees. We've also had 3 major public involvement pushes at key milestone stages in the plan, developing the goals, identifying alternatives and evaluating alternatives, and that you'll see reflected in the projects that are in the plan. To reiterate what you saw last month and what you approved us updating the guiding principles to be is to support safe and healthy communities, economic prosperity, equity and innovation, sustainability and climate action, and to increase travel choices for our community. There is a series of goals that support further those guiding principles, and each of these goals is a chapter in the Regional Transportation Plan document with additional information. The project maps are here. They're in the plan as well. I know you've seen them many times. The update to this particular version is the addition based on board input of a project from Ingenuity to Egyptian for safety and additional southbound lanes. So you see that here for design in the 2021 to 2025. We have the downtown circulation study projects. This was a separate standalone study that you'll see as an appendix. I believe it's Appendix H in the document, with additional detail on this process and the needs for downtown Reno. And here again, this is the projects for the 2026 to 2030 timeframe. We have the construction of the project that I just mentioned on Pyramid. Everything else is the same as you saw previously. And I wanted to highlight here in this timeframe, we have construction of some of the projects that came out of the Sparks Industrial Study, Gregg Street, Rock Boulevard, and McCarran. And this is also an appendix in the document itself with additional detail about the needs for the Sparks Industrial area. And finally, the projects for the 2031 to 2050 years of the plan. And this is the same as what you saw previously. So no changes here. It's a very balanced combination of safety and multimodal and capacity needs to help the growing transportation demand in our community over the long term. In terms of the transit system, this is the same as what you have seen previously. We want to maximize the efficiency of our service and ridership for the limited transit dollars that we have. We want to move forward with the capital improvements that are currently budgeted in terms of improving bus stops and 4th Street Station. And to continue our Flex Ride, which has had our successful demonstration service over the last year. And of course, we don't have funding identified currently to be able to provide this, but we want to keep working and keep advancing and looking for those innovative funding strategies to expand our rapid system on West 4th Street and South Virginia Street. And in terms of process, we did have, I mentioned at the outset what we did throughout the life of the plan, but here we do have a public participation plan that specifies some requirements for our process. and that's to take the document to our Technical Advisory Committee and Citizens Multimodal Advisory Committee. Both of those committees did recommend approval to this board. We held a 21-day public comment period, and the comments received up until the posting of the agenda packet are in your packet as attachment C to this item. It also includes the formal letters that we received from various stakeholders in the community throughout the development of the process and our response to those. This week, and Michelle Krause has the details. She'll be able to provide this during the public comment period. We received 3 comments that we have responded to, and I know she has shared with all of the board members our response to those comments. One of those was inquiring about our process and whether we're following our public participation plan, which we are, and the federal requirements. And the federal requirements for MPOs for developing a transportation plan are to consult with interested stakeholders such as the jurisdictions and to provide a period for comment, which we have done. So now our public comment period closed yesterday, and we have a public hearing following this presentation today.
Amy?
Yes.
Amy, can I ask a question on this? Because we did get some correspondence on this public input and process. How long have we been using this process?
It has been in place for at least 10 years. I believe longer than that, but I was not at RTC before that, so I can't speak to how long exactly.
So this process has been in place for 10 years. Was this year any different than the prior 9?
No, it was not. And our public participation plan has been reviewed by the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration through our MPO certification process. So this has been, deemed compliant with federal regulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next steps, following action today, would be to submit the document to Federal Highways and Federal Transit Administration. Their role is to review our air quality conformity analysis to concur that we are in compliance with the Clean Air Act. And of course, they've been working with us throughout the process, so there shouldn't be any surprises there, we anticipate. And then following that, we will share this with the Regional Planning Commission. According to state statutes, our plan does need to be found in conformance with the regional plan, but the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency staff have participated with us throughout this process, and we've been in front of the Regional Governing Board and the Regional Planning Commission to incorporate their input. So we are feeling that we are very consistent with the regional plan as well. So that concludes my presentation. Welcome any questions that you have, and then we do want to hold the public hearing today.
Thank you very much. If we can take this off, well, I don't know if I want to take this off the screen because we may have some questions from commissioners. So if commissioners have questions on any items, just speak up. I can't see your faces right now. Just chime in and say you have a question or a comment. Okay.
Let me do one thing. If I'm not stepping over, I heard another voice. So,
okay, Commissioner Harton.
Thank you, Amy. I just wanted to thank you for a great job. I know you've done a huge amount of work on this, and you've gone out to all the agencies. You've talked to everyone. You've talked to, regional, you've talked to the commission. I know you've talked to the councils. I know you've gotten a lot of input. I know people have felt like, oh, we need more time. I just want to tell you, I think you've done an incredibly great job. I appreciate some of the additions from this board's last comments to you. And, this is in my opinion, a very comprehensive document. Is it perfect? Of course not. They never are. That's not a pejorative comment. Show me something that's perfect and I'll show you something that's not. But I think you've done a really phenomenal job on this. And I would like to remind everyone, this is a living document. These get changed periodically. And that's the whole idea. So again, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and I concur, Amy. We know there is just a tremendous amount of work that goes into this. And again, just to confirm for the record, the Regional Planning Governing Board and all of the jurisdictional boards, does this need their approval, or is this something that we just go in and advise what this board with their input has put together? I'm just trying to understand how this all works, because I think there might have been some confusion from some members as to it needing a stamp of approval, but I think we gave that stamp of approval.
Thank you for that question. The requirements as an MPO is that we consult with the jurisdictions as we develop this plan, which we have done over the last year and a half. There is no approval action required from the federal transportation standpoint in the U.S. Department of Transportation in terms of expending federal funds. There is a separate state requirement that all plans developed by entities such as RTC make sure those plans are in conformance with the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. So we will be going, and again, we've worked with that team throughout this process as well, but following adoption, we will take this plan to the Regional Planning Commission for their conformance review.
Okay, thank you very much. I can't see if any other commissioners have any questions or comments at this time.
And if I may, I'd like to note, and again, I know you'll hear this when the comments are identified, one of those comments was to extend our public comment period as part of the question of whether we met the federal requirements. And our response to that comment was that we have met the requirements in our public participation plan and from the USDOT.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm not hearing any other voices at this time. I don't believe. I can't see anybody. I would ask our attorneys if we need, do we need to do separate actions for 5.1 and 5.2, or can we take them together?
Madam Chair, this is Adam.
Yes.
These are separate actions. And so
Okay.
the next step would to open the public hearing on 5.1.
Okay.
And have that take place. And then after that's closed, you could either continue to deliberate or then take action on 5.1.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this time, we will open the public hearing for item 5.1. Madam Clerk, was proper notice given and any correspondence received?
Yes, Madam Chair. There are 3 comments. Jenny Breckus emailed on March 15th at 8:26 a.m. pertaining to the RTP 2050 plan comment period. She would like the comment period to be extended for an additional 30 days and asked for a copy of the federal MPO regulations. Amy Cummings replied on March 16th at 1:17 p.m. with the federal MPO requirements that were requested. Jenny Breckus also asked about, she also had a follow-up question on March 16th at 4:47 p.m. pertaining to the comment period regarding a new roadway plan for South Meadows. Amy Cummings replied on March 17th at 1:27 p.m. saying that she would provide these comments to the RTC board for today's meeting. The next comment was from Brian Mullins, emailed on March 16th at 7:52 a.m. regarding the 2050 plan comments, stating his concern is traffic flow. Amy Cummings replied on March 17th at 2:14 p.m. and copied members of our engineering team who are the leads for the intersection traffic signal improvements for response. And Jay Seawick emailed on March 18th at 9:34 a.m. regarding the public comment. He would like the commission to put into place a goal of funding projects that would accommodate the needs of the community 20 years out. He had suggested for transit services. Had a suggestion for transit services. And Amy Cummings replied on March 18th at 11:53 a.m., thanking him for his input and copied the members of our transit team to reach out and let him know about the TOPS project and the transit services available. And those comments were all emailed to the commissioners last evening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that synopsis, and I believe we discussed a number of those comments as well. So at this time, I'm just following proper procedures here. Mr. Attorney, Adam, are we at the action point of item 5.1?
Madam Chair, we are at the action point. The board could continue to deliberate, or there could be a motion to adopt a resolution approving the RTP.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Hartung.
I make a motion to adopt the RTP as draft in the staff report.
Thank you very much. We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries unanimously. Item 5.2. At this time, we will continue the opening of the public hearing. Madam Clerk, was there proper notice given and any correspondence received?
There was proper notice and there is no further public comment.
Thank you very much. Director Thomas.
Thank you, Chair Jordan. Dan Dunges is going to be giving the presentation on the Regional Transportation Improvement Plan, which, just as a reminder, is the 5-year plan for the next projects that will be coming forward in the near term. So, Dan, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Director Thomas. Members of the Commission, Dan Dunges, Planning Manager.
Yowzer. Okay, maybe we all go on mute.
It's Dan. I think you maybe need to sign out and sign back in.
Apologies.
Dan, if you want to bring up the presentation or the slides while you address audio, I can start the overview.
That would be great. Thank you very much, Amy.
So the Regional Transportation Improvement Program is our 5-year document. And again, this is a federal requirement to show how we are obligating our federal funds. It does need to be consistent with the Regional Transportation Plan. So we're very pleased to have these synced and be able to update and have the first 5 years of the Regional Transportation Plan now update our 5-year Regional Transportation Improvement Program. So this does include, in addition to the projects that you just saw on the roadway side, all of our transit operating and capital expenses. This is a document that we update every 4 years as well. Or it's required to be updated every 4 years, but we typically update it every 2 years so that we always have a 2-year project in reserve. So this also must meet the transportation air quality requirements. And we have used the same air quality conformity analysis that we did for the RTP since the projects are all the same. Next
All right,
slide.
Amy, can you hear me now?
Much better, thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
much better.
You can either continue, Amy, if you want, or I could jump in. I apologize. I don't know what happened there, but looks like I'm online now.
Take it away, Dan, please.
Okay. Sorry about that. And thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Just picking up where Deputy Director Cummings left off. As she mentioned, the Regional Transportation Improvement Program is consistent with the Regional Transportation Plan. So this is just a reminder that showing the first 5 years of the RTP and all the capacity and street and highway improvements that are included within the document. Some of the projects and programs that really don't get into that level of detail in the RTP are also included in the Transportation Improvement Program. And I've listed on this slide a few of those, including funding we received through the Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program, the Trip Reduction Program, which really is kind of the vehicle for which we operate the van pool program and our ride match services, the Safe Routes to School program, which we do assist with funding of that position, the FTA 5310 program, and this is the program that corresponds with the service providers throughout the region, first like senior services. And this was the subject of the recent coordinated transportation plan that was approved by the board recently. And then it does list all of our transit capital and operating expenditures as well. And these include things like vehicle replacement, equipment replacement, maintenance of the vehicles, all of our funding for our facilities. Some of the highlights in this particular tip are the Meadowood Mall relocation, expansion to the 4th Street station, and construction of the bus rapid transit station on Virginia Street across from Peppermill. And of course, some of our operating highlights, we continue to fund the Flex Ride program, the Ed Pass program, which is the program which allows for free rides for university and Truckee Meadow Community College students, faculty, and staff, and the BRT services, particularly the one that's being extended up to the university area on Virginia Street. And lastly, this is a slide that's actually in the TIP document, which you do have in your packets, but I just wanted to show the breakdown of expenditures across the different project types. Obviously, the capacity improvements are typically much larger in scope and scale, so it's no surprise that that's a big portion of this funding, of this pie chart, and you can kind of see the breakdown between the other programs there. With that, I don't know, sorry, as I was running through the technical difficulties, I'm not sure if Deputy Executive Director Cummings mentioned, but we did have a public comment period that was concurrent with the RTP. It was 21-day. No comments were received for specific to the RTIP. With that, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, does anybody have any questions or comments? I can't see your faces, so just speak up.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you. And again, Mr. Dunn, just I appreciate the hard work. And again, adding certain kinds of things in, like back on your map, the item number 14, which is the far end, that additional lane out on the Pyramid Highway for the commercial traffic that exists in that corridor heading south. I just, again, thank you. I think you guys have done a good job capturing many of the needs. Certainly not all. There's a whole bunch more, and as we move along, there's going to be even more. But I think you guys have really done a phenomenal job here. So thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners? Okay, seeing none, may I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
And Madam Chair, this is Adam.
Yes, Adam.
Just as a point of clarification too, in terms of opening the public hearing, Michelle, was there any public comment or input received on this item?
No, there was no further comment on this item.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I asked that at the opening, so thank you very much. May I get a motion?
So moved, Hartung.
Second, Delgado.
I have a motion and a second. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carried unanimously. Thanks, everybody. I know that's a heavy, heavy lift. You've done a great job. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, we're moving on to item 7, Executive Director Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. Well, the first thing, which is kind of apropos, is given that Dan just gave the presentation on the RTIP, I wanted to announce that Dan is going to be having his 5-year anniversary with RTC on April 25th. So thank you, Dan, for all the work you do and all your contributions to RTC. I did also want to point out, even though I think I mentioned this last month, that today is the 20-year anniversary for Leanne Olivas from our engineering department. Actually, she is going to be moving forward in a strict change to our organization to make our administrative support a little more effective and efficient. So I'm very proud of all the contributions from Leanne. And on behalf of all the staff and the board, wanted to thank her again, second time for the 20 years, particularly that it's the 20th year today. It was a really big day for public transportation last week, March 8th, as we officially launched the Rapid Virginia Line Extension, the final component of the Virginia Street Bus Rapid Transit Extension project. The official launch was held at a media opportunity event at the newest rapid station located at the University of Nevada, Reno. This particular station is right by Lawler Event Center. I wanted to thank many of our speakers, which included Amy, Chair Jardin, Congressman Amodei, UNR's Vic Redding, and Midtown Association President Craig Parrish, who withstood the heavy winds to join us in celebrating outside the start of service of this rapid line. And as Amy said in the presentation, that it was a very proud day for RTC. And I personally am very proud of our staff and the project team that delivered this project, not only approximately 18 months early, but also close to $20 million under budget. So, and just so the board knows, we've been having conversations with the FTA, including this past, I think it was even yesterday, with the new FTA administrator, and she was quite appreciative of us being able to deliver not only this project under budget, but also the previous one on Fourth Freighter. So I think it made a good impression on the administrator when we explained to her our success in the past two projects, which is, as you all can appreciate, very much a direct reflection of the staff's commitment and dedication and skills and knowledge. So I'm very proud of our team for doing that. I want to also thank Michael Moreno and Lauren Ball for putting together a great event. This event was live streamed on Facebook and covered by many media outlets. Big also thanks to the project team for their hard work and extensive outreach. And I wanted to particularly focus on, even though everybody at RTC contributed in various ways to the success, Jeff Wilbrecht, who was our project manager, SNC, the construction crews, and one more time, all of the RTC staff. Just an update on the COVID vaccinations. As of today, 78 out of 95 Keolis bus drivers have received the COVID-19 vaccination. For MTM, 41 out of the 60 drivers have received it. The remaining drivers will be scheduled when the Washoe County Health District adds additional vaccine dates. So just so everybody understands, because of the potential implications of having all the drivers vaccinated at the same time and what it could do to our system, we really worked with our partners, both at Keolis and MTM, to make sure that the drivers are scheduled in. But I just want to share with all of you that we are making great progress, and the drivers are moving forward with vaccinations. Since the pandemic began, the RTC has supported and contributed to the efforts of the region and the state of Nevada to ensure a safe community. The RTC is working to get transportation to those who need assistance getting to and from COVID vaccine locations. Beginning Monday, March 22nd, the RTC will offer free ride, flex ride, and access trips to vaccination locations. Individuals who want to use transit to get their free trip to a vaccination location simply would need to show the driver their vaccination appointment confirmation email when they board. People can go to rtcwashoe.com for route and schedule information. Information on other free or low-cost transportation opportunities for people who live in areas not served by public transportation is also available at rtcwashoe.com by clicking on the coronavirus precautions on the homepage. We are continuing the process of replacing the Arlington Avenue bridges over the Truckee River, and we're looking for community input. We invite the public to please watch our virtual public presentation and take a brief survey, which is open until March 31st. Links to the presentation and the survey are available at rtcwashoe.com and RTC social media channels. The RTC is accepting applications through April 26th at noon for the Federal Transit Administration 5310 grant program for fiscal year 2021. Funds are available for capital and operating expenses to support the provision of transportation services to enhance the specific needs of elderly persons and persons with disabilities. The total funding available for the two-year cycle is $821,000, and the grant administration through RTC is available for programs in the Reno-Sparks urbanized area of Washoe County. It's designed to carry out and meet the special transportation needs, as I said earlier, both seniors and individuals with disability. Eligible applicants must be private, nonprofit, private for-profit, or local government authorities. To learn more about this funding and grant process, funding opportunity grant process, please go to rtcwashoe.com. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Do any commissioners have any comments, questions? All right, seeing none, at this time we'll move on to the federal report.
Again, thank you, Madam Chair. So in your packet is a report on all the activities which have been quite extensive, as you can imagine, with the new administration coming on. A couple that I wanted to highlight for you is that the most recent rescue funding plan that was approved by Congress and signed by the President has a formula whereby transit agencies such as ours receive funding for operations, which is a little bit atypical, but something that's been happening with the COVID pandemic. Right now, our estimate based on the 132% of our 2018 operating expenses is that we will be receiving an additional approximately a little more than $19 million to go towards operations. We have not yet seen from FTA any confirmation of the amount and when it would be available, but it's our understanding that it would need to be spent for transit operations and costs, particularly any that are associated with or those associated with the pandemic, and that it must be spent by 2024. So as we get that information, we'll either present it to you, we will present it to you at your next board meeting, but we'll also send out a notification to you once we find out confirmation of how much we will be receiving from that funding source. The other thing which I will share with you is it pretty much, well, I don't know if it'd be hard to say confirmed, but it looks pretty clear that the community project funding process is going to be a new endeavor from Congress. And the former term of, or the former term for what I'm talking about was earmarks. So this is a new name for what was a project that was eliminated, I think, a little more than 10 years ago. We are working very close with Congressman Amodei, who's our representative, and he has sent out information to us. We will be sending to his office the request on behalf of the board and the community. The two requests specifically that we have presented to you previously, but I just wanted to reiterate, is money for the the Arlington Street bridges. We're going to be asking for about $10 million to replace local funds that we needed to put into that project. In addition, we will be requesting reconsideration and hopefully approval of our previous request for a hydrogen fuel cell demonstration project, which would entail 4 buses and the fueling infrastructure to be able to explore whether that no emission means of providing transit is the one that can work and would work for us. So those are our 2 major requests at this point. We will, of course, also be sharing, as this moves forwards, the board's previously identified and frequently supported top priority of the Spaghetti Bowl and 395 North highway improvements. So that'll be part of what we will be sharing with our congressional delegation as we move forward with the not earmarks earmark process. So that concludes my update of an abbreviated version of what's all in that multi-page report, but certainly if any of you have questions now or at another time, we'd be glad to address those.
Thank you very much. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments on the federal report? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to Director Swallow for the NDOT report.
Good morning. Here, let me share my screen and we'll get right to this. All right. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in person next month. And I'm looking forward to being eligible for vaccination on April 5th and getting us back to some sort of version of normal. Although I recognize I may not be able to get my vaccination on April 5th, but I'll finally be eligible and can start working on scheduling that appointment. So I thought I would start this presentation, as I always do, with safety. So our number 1 goal across the department, as you know, is safety. Our design, engineering, construction, maintenance, operation begin with safety in mind, and it is our primary focus. So you can see that on this slide, So far this year, the number of lives lost on Nevada roads was actually down 6% in February, which brought the overall, I should say it was down greater than that in February. So the overall compared to last year, we're down 6% so far through February, which is really good. And in Washoe County, it reflects actually that same trend. There have been increases across the state, but in Washoe County, your numbers are lower than last year, which is really good. Crashes were down 67% in Washoe, and fatalities decreased by 58% compared to last year. So that is fantastic, and hopefully we can continue to see the numbers staying below those of last year. Year over year, pedestrian deaths have also decreased in Washoe County by 67%, with only 2 pedestrian deaths so far compared to 6 in 2020. I want to pause here for a second and highlight a film that debuted yesterday. I don't actually have the title of it, but I know that Rebecca joined us in the debut, and it was about pedestrian fatalities and really focusing on all of our efforts to reduce the number of pedestrians and hopefully eliminate the number of pedestrians that lose their lives on our roads every year. As soon as I get the link, I will share it with you, and I encourage you to watch it. It's a short film. I think it was maybe 30 minutes or so, but it was eye-opening, and I think something that you may want to watch. By the end of February, there were also 0 motorcyclist fatalities in Washoe, and last year there was 1. So that's also a good sign. As we know, every life lost on our system is 1 life too many, and it impacts not just that one person who lost their life, but everyone in their circle, their friends and their family, the people they work with, and it really does impact our community. We recognize, and we know, and you all know, you hear me talk about it every month, that driving on our network can be dangerous. And last week, along US 395 and Panther Valley, Sergeant Franco of NHP was on the scene as nearly 20 crashes occurred within a half hour of each other. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that video. It was, there was a short video, it was about 6 minutes, that was on social media, showing what happened when drivers were traveling on the network at a speed that was too high for conditions. Sergeant Franco spent several hours responding to those in need, taking crash reports, checking for injuries, and coordinating resources to close the highway further to prevent additional crashes and injuries. One woman did suffer major injuries and was taken to the hospital. And we really just remind travelers that the posted speed limit is posted at that number intended for ideal weather conditions. When snow or ice is present, we need to make sure that we slow down and give plenty of space. That space between us and the driver in front of us not only allows more time for us to react, it also allows more time for our vehicles to respond, or if they don't respond, to figure out another course of action. As you watch, the road quickly had iced over. The storm came in differently than had been anticipated. And those that were driving too fast simply were not able to stop their cars in the time that they had, given the icy conditions. Winter weather is still expected this month in northern Nevada. And so we just remind everyone to please slow down, give space between you and the driver in front of you. That will allow you the time to react. And if the reaction doesn't go the way you had hoped, it gives you time to come up with another course of action and perhaps avoid a collision. Hopefully avoid a collision. So we wanted to thank Sergeant Franco and NHP for their bravery and responsiveness in helping keep us all safe on the roads. I wanted to give you an SPX update. You want this every month, and so we're going to continue doing it every month. And I enjoy doing these because we generally have positive news, even if the news is that we're changing the lane control. The positive part of that, the silver lining, is that means that construction is continuing and progress is being made on this really big construction project. So we continue, and as I mentioned last month, there have been some significant traffic controls that have changed. So it's called the Big Squeeze. It went into effect earlier this week, and it reflects the new lane and merge changes that will squeeze traffic lanes through the Spaghetti Bowl through the spring of next year, so spring of 2022. This Big Squeeze is going to last for over a year. Over the coming weeks, drivers will see the following major traffic shifts, which will be in place for approximately the next 14 months, including I-580 southbound traffic will be shifted slightly below the bowl. The I-80 East to I-580 South ramp will be shifted onto a temporary ramp. The I-80 West to I-580 South ramp will be reconfigured to merge with I-580 traffic as opposed to the current dedicated merge lane. Travel delays because of the construction should be expected, and drivers are encouraged to consider alternate routes whenever they can. Allow for extra time given the slow progression through the construction zone. Slow down, go slow through the construction zone, even if there's no other cars, go slow through the construction zone. And be attentive for new merge and lane patterns. We are in the heart of the construction of this project, and so we really need everybody to be attentive to what's going on, be aware of each other, be aware of other vehicles, but also be aware of the workers that may be on the network, may be in the construction zone. The traffic control configuration allows for the west side of I-580 improvements to be completed, including the interchanges at Mill Street and 2nd. Work will continue to ramp up and progress between southbound and northbound lanes throughout this year, and the project remains on schedule to achieve substantial completion late fall of 2022. Wanted to give an update on the McCarran Boulevard project that started last spring. So this is the second season of roadway repaving and improvements on McCarran. The project launched last summer, and the roadway was primarily, most of the paving work was completed last year. The stretch of road sees as many as 32,000 drivers daily. We can anticipate overnight single lane closures will be in place Sunday nights through Friday mornings on sections of McCarran between 4th Street and South Virginia Street as work proceeds. Crews will install roadway drainage, landscaping, accessibility, and other improvements. One lane will remain open in each direction at all times for businesses and residential access. Travel delays we anticipate will be minimal. The project will wrap up towards the end of this year. And again, we just remind everyone in construction zones to go slow, give each other space, and watch for construction workers. And then lastly, I wanted to announce a cool new service. As you know, we do not do any urban transit, but we are part of the service providing of rural transit, which is critical to the lives of our rural residents. And so we're super excited to extend those benefits for more Nevadans in some new and exciting ways. Earlier this week, actually, I believe it started on Monday, NDOT and Salt Lake Express launched daily bus service between Reno and Fallon, Fernley, and Las Vegas. Operated by Salt Lake Express, daily round-trip bus services will connect Reno with Fallon, Fernley, and Las Vegas via 95 and I-80. The buses will arrive and pick up from the Centennial Plaza Bus Terminal in Sparks and offer stops in Pahrump, 80, Tonopah, Hawthorne, Fallon, and Fernley. And we hope the new service will connect Nevada's rural communities, as well as bring new transit trips and connections into the RTC's local routes. The transit service will also provide connections from Elko to Salt Lake City and Elko to Twin Falls, Idaho. Cumulatively, the routes are projected to serve as many as 18,250 trips during the first year. And the new bus services are part of approximately $10 million in FTA administration funds and NDOT administers annually to support rural public transit, connecting Nevadans to employment, recreation, and medical services. The trips are frequently provided from the rural areas where resources are scarce to larger urban areas where additional services are offered. And tickets for all routes can be accessed on Salt Lake Express's website. I personally, when this rolled out, I personally took a look at it. I'm like, maybe this is an alternate for me between Reno and Vegas. The round trips are independent, so they leave in the afternoon hours from Reno and from Vegas. They arrive in the late evening hours. It should be something that will really help to benefit our rural community members really in accessing those public services that may not be available in the local community. So I'm really excited about this. And you may see some additional transit passengers once they get to the Reno area. So that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Lots of exciting stuff going on. Any commissioners have any questions or comments? Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for the repetitious comments, Director Swallow. We're still hopeful that NDOT will look at the far north end of Pyramid going through Spanish Springs, and I'm hopeful, Director Thomas and I talked about a number 2 lane that would be essentially a truck travel lane from about Ingenuity to where the road forks at about Egyptian, and so that it'd be wonderful if we could get that. It's just such a huge need in terms of safety. And then I also wanted to ask you, that section of 395 where the 17-car pileup occurred. And this is going back years ago, when I lived in the North Valleys up in Horizon Hill, that was a known, very treacherous section of 395. In fact, I've been sideways in a vehicle at 65 miles an hour there, and blessedly did not go off the road. But I've experienced that section. It's almost like cold air lays down on the road there. It's really kind of bizarre. And I wonder how often accidents occur. This one, of course, got our attention because it was a 17-car pileup. But has NDOT thought about maybe putting some emergency flashers that would be connected to, a temperature gauge that would say, hey, look, roads may be icy going down through there? Because that's not an uncommon place for it to happen.
Thank you for staying on topic with that Northern Pyramid request. As I think I've mentioned before, those types of projects do have to go through your TIP process to get into our STIP. And so I think that is something that you may want to look at in the future and determine if that is a higher priority than something else that's on the TIP. Wanting to make sure that we're working together and addressing your regional priorities and recognizing that there are resource constraints. So adding a lane is not, unfortunately, as simple as it may seem. And I know you've mentioned that it appears to be fairly simple. It is still a resource allocation, and we need to make sure that we're going through the proper process, which includes starting in your TIP. As for that section of 395, I do want to just note that we are, and we are constantly monitoring the weather. We're working with our partners at the National Weather Service office in Reno. We're working with NHP, and we're really trying to make sure these things don't happen. But every now and then the storm comes in wetter or colder or something different than what is anticipated because it's the weather. And that is what happened. That does not mean, though, that there's not something that we could do differently. And so I will work with our team and District 2 and see if they have any thoughts or things that we might be able to do differently in that section. I should note, I just got a text that we're doing a road safety audit on Pyramid, and that will be done later this year. So that may help inform some of the improvements moving forward. So.
Oh, thank you so much. That is so desperately needed. I'm eternally grateful. That's a great place to start. And by the way, we have added it, so we're working backwards in our own process, and so I think you'll see it fairly soon. And that I have to give thanks to Director Thomas. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Swallow. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hartung. Do any other commissioners have any questions or comments on the NDOT report? Okay, seeing none, Director Swallow, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item 8, Commissioner announcements and updates. Anybody have any announcements, any future agenda items, anything you'd like to discuss? All right, seeing none. Moving on to 9, closing public comment. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Madam Chair, there's been no further comments from the public.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Tomorrow is the first day of spring. We've made it, folks. I'm excited. It is the dawning of spring in many ways, and looking forward to seeing you all in person at our next meeting. Bring your mask. Be ready to get back to some level of normalcy. And at this time, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Seeing none opposed, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Hey, thanks. Kirk out.